Hi everybody and welcome to this episode of the Stretch podcast. Really pleased you could join us. Just a reminder that if you'd like to get involved, you can leave your thoughts, feelings, perspectives on today's topic in the comments below. Also, it would really help the growth of the channel if you could like this video and subscribe. And if you do subscribe, remember to hit that bell icon so you don't miss when new episodes go live. Thanks for listening and enjoy the episode. So in preparation for our discussion today around finding your coaching niche, which I think is a really interesting one, I did a bit of research as usual, did a bit of Googling around the different types of coaching, and quite honestly found so many variations, so many different opinions, so many different perspectives. One site divided up different types of coaching into 31 different variations, which I really struggle to get my head around. And to pick out a few: life coaching, business coaching, executive coaching, leadership coaching, performance coaching, high performance coaching. I could go on, but I won't. And then there's other sites that talk about humanist coaching and all this sort of stuff. Even some websites just define between virtual coaching and face-to-face coaching. So, we're all experienced coaches around the table here, the virtual table. And my head was spinning. I suddenly had these doubts of, what the heck is my niche? Should I fit into one of these categories neatly? So for new or development coaches, it must be even worse if you put that question into Google and get presented with all this stuff. So I don't know. My first question, just to throw out there: are there really that many different types of coaching, or is this simply marketing?
I think we know the answer to that, don't we?
What do you think?
I would suspect it's an element of marketing. I think if you're a coach, aren't you? You use all those skills, you flex them to different scenarios. So you might dial certain things up, you might dial certain things down, but basically there's a core set of skills, and your experience and your skill set and behaviours will underpin any coaching kind of conversation that you have, and flex it to the situation and most of all the coachee in front of you. I would hope that's what a good coach does. I don't know, thoughts? Lou, you're more kind of niched though, aren't you? In a way.
Yeah, and my experience is quite interesting. I'm kind of sitting on my hands a bit because I'm thinking, gosh, where do I start with this? Because I've spent 14 years pretty much being an external coach. That was my choice. That was the route that I decided to go down for various reasons. And my experience has been quite interesting. So when I started as a new external coach, launched my website, got my marketing out there, and I was struggling to earn a living, to be fair, being a generalist coach, sort of, jack of all trades, master of none. And, I got clients, but it was really hard work. And it wasn't until I honed my target market, really got clear on what problem I wanted to solve in the world, or problems I wanted to solve in the world, that actually my coaching business really grew and exploded, to be quite honest. And that's where I earned my money. So I had different niches as I grew and expanded as a coach, but I couldn't earn a living as a generalist being an external coach. I found it very, very difficult. And it wasn't until I niched that my success, even publishing deals, they definitely came as a result of having a specialist area, no question about it. Magazines, I wrote for magazines, and they came about, those opportunities came about by having a niche in a specific area. So for me, it's quite an interesting one. I'm not sure if there's 31 areas, as Stephen pointed out. That seems quite extensive. But my success has been down to niching personally.
So we've touched on it before, I think. But just for those watching or listening, just give us a bit of insight, Lou, into what that niche is, where it kind of starts and ends, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so I started off coaching anybody that would pay me. Anybody that breathed, that wanted coaching as a new coach, and I got my hours up, and then one day I remember sitting down with my diary and saying, right, okay, I this isn't working, and I need to earn a decent living if I want to continue living this life and my passion, etc. I remember going through my diary and looking at the topics that I was presented with, by my coaches, and thinking also about what I enjoyed doing. And that's how my first niche came about, really looking at all these different coaches and all the topics and goals and saying, what do I enjoy coaching around? What really gets me excited? Which are the clients where I go, can't wait to speak to such and such tomorrow, and which are the ones where I go, oh my god. And for me, relationship coaching, all of that conflict resolution was definitely not my bag at all. And for me, it was very much around the sort of performance and the sort of career transition or even life transition. That was the bit that really got me excited, and that was my first niche. That was how it was birthed, I suppose. So off the back of that realization, I changed my marketing. So there is a marketing element to this for sure. I started to tailor my comms, talking about the problem that I could help my clients solve. So for me, business is about what problem have I got, what problem am I solving rather, and what solution am I providing. So as a result of this, I changed my marketing, and I really started to write and communicate to that particular niche, that particular target market. So that was my first niche, was very much, and that's what my book was written around, that topic area and articles and stuff like that.
If you were in that situation, and obviously you had that niche, if you felt that your clients were veering into another area, would you pull it back, or would you go there? I guess it's like you say, it was around that, but it started to, go into the relationship side of things. Would you still have, I suppose, gone there?
No.
Yeah.
No, I'd have done that. I was very black and white, had very, very strong boundaries about who I worked with. And for me, it was much about me choosing who I work with. It sounds a bit, what's the word? But it was very much that chemistry session. I called them discovery session, was very much a two-way. Do I want to work with this client? Do they fit my niche? Do they want to work with me? It was a two-way, and it should be for everybody. But I'd referred them on, Ali, and said, I'm not sure I'm the right coach for you. I know a coach that I think is a good fit for you. And that might be a generalist coach that I'd have sent them to, or someone that specialised in that particular area. But no, I wouldn't have done.
It strikes me that there's almost two strands to it, two questions, isn't there? What's my niche as a coach, or how do I identify or label myself or whatever as a coach? And secondary, but also linked, obviously, and super important, how do I make money as a coach? So I think we can kind of almost say, I'm happy. So the way I described it at the beginning, kind of, these are the skills that every coach would have. And this is my expectation about the behaviours and the experience that a good coach comes with and all that kind of stuff. But whilst logically also knowing that actually having that marketing edge and that spin to it is really useful. And I guess it's kind of finding something that meets both of those, and that having that sweet spot that still feels good, authentic, real, but does allow you to continue, as you said, Lou, to live the life you want to do and to kind of work in your sweet spot and your passion area. So that maybe there's two, maybe it's not that we have to associate and label ourselves as having a niche or be generalist. Actually, is there a way of finding a different way of describing it? I don't know, because I'm not sure whether I do have a niche, but there again, a generalist sounds a bit negative, or is that my perception of it? It sounds a bit lower grade, a bit.
It could be. I suppose it's picking up on something Lou said. Is it the jack of all trades and master of none? Do you want to get labelled with that? And I suppose having coached predominantly in an organisation where you had a pool of people to coach, but it was very much they chose to get coaching. It wasn't you're coaching, X, Y, and Z. The topics could really vary. So even if it was in a work environment, it wasn't necessarily around the job. So it might have been around their job. It might have been around performance, but then performance might actually then lead to, well, actually it's confidence, and there's imposter syndrome. So, or it might be a work situation and actually it's the relationships in the work situation. So you'd kind of go, it would be very kind of different things that you could uncover. And I think there's probably, so again, I wouldn't necessarily, again, that kind of label, but I do wonder if there's, for me, I think there's certain things that I enjoy coaching on more than others. And maybe if I was marketing myself out, outside, would that be different? So I know for me there's a bit around finding your passion in life, or that kind of midlife that midlife point that people come to and start to ask themselves the questions, what am I doing with my life, what am I, and maybe because that's something that I've gone through or am going through, that kind of think, I can associate with that, or where it is about whether it's making work in relationships or home relationships, I know the benefit for me that I've had from coaching on those, to kind of then link that in and help others, or support others in that. So I suppose there's areas that I've tended to veer towards, and then when I think about external clients that I've then got that have come from recommendations, they've probably been linked into those kind of things. So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, it's one of those. I agree. I wouldn't want to be referred to as a generalist, but there's an element that I wouldn't want to necessarily put myself in a place where I couldn't then explore other things, I think is
putting all your eggs in one basket sort of thing. Yeah.
I think it depends whether, from my perspective, I suppose if you work within an organisation as a coach, you're going to get all different topics. In the external world, it just didn't work. I couldn't earn a living doing it that way. And I think just a question to throw into the room is, if you were hiring a coach and let's say you had a specific problem you were trying to solve, i.e., relationship or, a job situation, and you were hiring a coach, what would you look for? You're going to look for someone that specialises in that area, or would you be quite happy having someone that just is a general coach? I think that's an interesting question to ask, because I know what my answer would be.
Yeah, I think for me, the context of, I don't want to, for it to sound too gauche, but who's paying for it is quite important, because if it's literally me realizing I'm a bit stuck as an individual and I'm seeking some support, I can absolutely see why what you've just said, Lou. I want to look for somebody who is a specialist or passionate about the thing that I am struggling with. And then if it's an organization hiring a pool of external coaches, then it's probably quite different. And I think this might be the crux of it, because this conversation is really interesting, because it's just forcing me to think about the answer to the question, do I have a niche? And I'm unsure, actually. I would probably have said no at the beginning of this conversation, but the way that I have attracted clients since I've been working for myself externally has been wrapped up in something bigger than coaching. It has been leadership consultancy, and that's been my entry to work with clients. Large corporate clients, for example, hasn't been one-to-one individuals who are paying out of their own pocket sort of thing. So that would probably, back to my list of 31 things, I'm never going to stop looking at that now. I probably should. It's like leadership coaching, it's performance coaching, it's career coaching, probably. But I still feel a bit uncomfortable just boxing myself in a little bit. I don't know what that's about. But I think the other thing for me is, and I admit, hands up, that my bias kicks in when I see what I would consider over the top social media, more hyped version of coaching, and it's usually life coaching or things like that. Doesn't mean that life coaches aren't doing a brilliant job, by the way, but there seems to be something at the other end of the spectrum from what we're talking about, which I don't know, just doesn't, and it's maybe my bias. I'm not great at selling myself. It's not something that appeals to us. So when I see that, it kind of jars a little bit. I don't know if that's your experience or not. But.
Well, and I think that's not helped by the unregulated industry that we work in, because any Tom, Dick and Mick can call themselves a coach, and I know loads of people in my contacts on LinkedIn that they started being a contact 4 or 5 years ago and they were called something. And then suddenly about 2 or 3 years ago, they were all coaches. It was a miracle. And they hadn't undergone any training or anything like that. They were just catching on to the idea that coach was becoming a much more attractive word, and they were commoditizing, basically, they're monetizing that word in effect, and using their business consultancy experience or project management experience or whatever it was to then sell and niche themselves as a coach. And then, of course, not realizing that then under that coach umbrella is, as you've said, 1,001 other niches.
Well,
You
this
see
isn't
things advertised, come to this 2-day course and you can be a life coach, and you're kind of like, 2 days or even a day. It's scary.
This is an important point to make, isn't it, for maybe people who are listening or watching this who aren't as immersed in the industry as we are, that if you are seeking a coach, you need to check credentials. There needs to be some credentials from the EMCC or the ICF or the Association for Coaching. Let's be upfront about it. If you want a kite mark of quality, you should be looking for one of those 3 organizations or something similar. But yeah, again, Lou, I'm quite jealous in a way that you found your niche, because I think there's another not fear, but the question. And again, it'd be great to get your thoughts. I've always thought, just having this specific niche, and it's been touched upon, does it limit your amount of clients you get, or does it increase? Because you could probably, without having done it, you could maybe have a fear of it going either way, I suppose. But what do you think? Does it limit it or does it increase it?
Well, and just to point out, I've had a few niches. So the primary one was around sort of career transitions, people wanting to completely change career. And I've done other stuff from as well. I think, does it limit you? One of the biggest fears is I can't niche because I'm going to limit my audience, and I think that's a fallacy. That has not been my experience. Niching helped me earn 10 times more than I did when I was coaching all topics. So for me, I definitely earned more, and also got more opportunities as a result of coaching, because I again became an expert in an area. Does it limit you? Yeah. So the downside of for me personally is that I then got really bored coaching around the same thing over and over again, using the same models, the same exercises. And what happened for me, and this is really interesting, I started to sort of fall out of love with coaching. It wasn't coaching, it was the niche. And it's been interesting coming into a university and kind of seeing new coaches go through the process, learning different models, and sort of reinvigorating, I suppose, my passion for coaching and learning again. So did it limit me? Has it limited me? Yeah, it has. So there's pros and cons. Yes, I earned lots of money doing it, but I shrunk as a result of limiting, I suppose. I mean, in all fairness, I did that for quite a few years, and then I moved into the business mentoring or coaching space. But there's a lot of BS. We've just briefly touched on that in that space. People really very much in it for the money and not for the love of coaching and for the passion. So that was an interesting niche that I stayed for a couple of years and then got out of. Very lucrative, but very is inauthentic. It just there was a lot of BS in that space.
It comes back to that measure, doesn't it? So how are we measuring our success, or what's meaningful to us? Is it the earning money? Is it the label? Is it the passion? Is it the sustainability of that as a career or a lifestyle? It's all of that, isn't it? So it's not an easy question to answer in a black and white way, is it? To niche or not to niche? Well, really, it depends on you. It depends on the sector. It depends on how long you're going to be in it. It depends on what you need to get out of it. All of these things are variable factors, aren't they, that are at play?
Yeah, and there's two themes coming out of this, I think, really, which personally I'm going to take away and think about genuinely, which is what you enjoy, still what you're passionate about, and why are you doing it? Why are you a coach in the first place? And of course, we've just discussed one extreme there. If it's just about money and marketing and making a noise, then, it's going to be an inauthentic kind of niche. It's going to be done for the wrong reasons. But if it's genuinely something that you relate to or have a passion for and all of those sorts of things, that, that could be a good, your North Star really as to what your niche is and what are the type of clients you want to work with. And how you, and let's face it, how you market yourself. Let's be real about it. If you're an independent coach, you have to earn money, otherwise you'll not be coaching for very long. So it is an important part to it.
And that goes back to that question, Lou, that you said. What do you who do you want as your coach?
Yeah,
I don't want someone who's in it for the money. I want someone who's passionate about it. And that doesn't mean that you can't be passionate and earn money. that's not what it's about. But I wouldn't want to feel that I'm going through a process and I'm another sausage in the sausage factory. I think it's for me, it's that purpose, it's that, it's that enjoyment and that positive intent is what I would want.
And that's absolutely, you've got to have both. If you're in it for the money, people can smell that anyway. You can sense that. I think, especially as coaches, as intuitive, emotionally intelligent individuals, I can see through it when someone's in it for the money. I think you're absolutely right, Ali. It's about both. And here's the thing, just coming back to your point, Stephen, this passion piece. The interesting thing for me is, for me, I think back to those years when I was writing my book and I was fully immersed in that niche. I was on fire, my passion. I got up in the morning and I wanted to record videos and write blogs and blah, blah, blah. There was no stopping me. And as a result of that, and maybe this is a topic for another time, that passion opened up doors that I couldn't have dreamt. That passion drove me. So finding that niche, getting behind that, and it was phenomenal. So for me, there's something around this passion, finding that sweet spot, that North Star, and miracles. I don't want to get all too woo-woo, but seriously, things happen when you're in that space.
I think it's also worth just thinking about that's really triggered something in me. I think in that. That whole why am I a coach, what am I doing, what does it serve, who am I helping, all of that kind of stuff. But also I think, again, going back to my point about kind of the industry that we work in being a little bit unregulated and having this kind of, there's some extremes on the edges, isn't there, going on? I think we're all aware of that. And then it strikes me that kind of, what are we doing on a day-to-day basis? Why are we doing it? Do we all have to strive to be gurus? Is that what we're all in it for? No. And yet that's what we're told is a model of success. That's what LinkedIn tells us. That's what 1 and 2 day workshops tell us. That's what certain consultancies charging, £5,000 a day lead us to believe, that we're all aspiring to be at this guru level. And of course, that's not the reality. We can't all do that. There isn't enough space. There isn't enough money on the table for that. And actually, it doesn't suit everyone to do that either. So it's still really, I'm still struggling with this dilemma of actually, do I just want to kind of just do what I want to do and do it well and have a sustainable living out of it, i.e. not get burnt out or not chasing some elusive unicorn and still be happy and still be developing. It's really causing that kind of dilemma in me at the moment, because I'm feeling that potentially for the last 11 years I was fairly passive now in my career. Niches were through associate work. So someone said, we've got this opportunity to work on a project, do you want to come in with us, or there's a collaborative piece of work over here or whatever, do you want to join us, there's 6 of us or whatever. And that kind of led me to areas that I wouldn't necessarily have niched in, and I really enjoyed it. But at the same time, I might have also been working on a different project over here that had a completely different niche. So I'm not answering any great question. I'm so sorry. I'm not solving the mystery of this podcast, but it's really interesting just to think about it.
But that triggers something in me as you're talking, because no, you don't have to be a guru, do you? You don't have to be an expert. That was my route, and it wasn't even a conscious thing. It just sort of it happened, and then I became known for that. And then I thought, well, I've got to keep doing it then. I'll keep going then. I'll write another book then. And so. But there are limitations in that. And actually, what's interesting, when I really got burnt out with it all, I took a step back and went, I'm just going to go and coach anybody on anything, and I found real joy in that. So I suppose my comeback to that is, and I'll say this, I'm working with someone at the moment trying to figure out her niche as a general, she's a really experienced coach. And I said, but what if your niche is just for now? What happens if it's just for now? Yeah. You don't have to make decisions for the next 10 years. What is your niche right now? And that takes the pressure off, and you kind of go, I'm going to just go with the flow, or I'm going to try for the next 2 years and focus on this particular area. So just changing that, do I have to figure it all out for the next 20 years? No, of course you don't. What do you want to do for now?
Yeah. I think it does lead back to that authenticity and that sustainability. So there's a couple of key words for me, along with that passion and all that, but definitely kind of, can I sustain this and can I be authentic doing it as well? I think so. They're 2 key questions for me, I think. So that's useful. Thank you.
Yeah, and that's completely freeing, isn't it? That's the feeling I was getting there, that actually we started off this conversation by, casting a wry eye over all of these titles and categories. And actually, nothing's forever. It's all experimentation. It's all growth, isn't it? Let's be honest, as a coach. And if you decide that actually for the next however many months or years even, that I just want to my focus and my energy is here, what the hell's wrong with that? And again, for those watching on YouTube, by the way, in the comments below, it would be brilliant to get your thoughts on this. So what is your niche? Do you believe in a niche? What could it be? Where does your passion lie? So it would be great to hear from you if you've got an opinion on that. But yeah, where do we leave this conversation about a niche then? If we went around the table, where do we leave it? Do we have a niche? Do we need a niche?
I say for me, I guess no, not at the moment. But I like what Lou was just saying about now. What's important now? And I think there's this whole other question. We focus on, what's a year, 2 years, 3 years, whatever it is down the line. And actually, what's important for me now might not be important for me next year or the year after, and that may change. And sometimes there's a bit of acceptance of that, or this niche that I may choose or what I may choose might not work. Okay, well, why not? Let's think of something different. So yeah, I think it's going. I suppose I'm reflecting on something I said earlier about the passion and what I enjoyed, and I think there's something for me to reflect on a bit more about the types of situations that I've enjoyed coaching in and feel that have kind of energized me, I think.
It's a great exercise to do. It's a really enlightening, because we don't stop. We kind of chug on, and just to sit down and say, what were the 10 people that I really remember? And there'll be some that were just difficult people, and then some that went, and then analyze that why. What was it? Was it about the individual? Was it about the goal? Yeah, and it'll throw up some interesting. Interesting.
And also not just an individual. For me, that makes me think of the context that I've coached in, or the environment, or perhaps it was a collaborative project with other coaches. Perhaps there was a real kind of plan underpinning it, or like Stephen said, those leadership development programs or whatever, where there's a real destination and it feels triumphant to realise that after 6 months of working with someone or whatever. So I think, that's really important to consider. So that's useful.
I think something that's just come out for me of this conversation is who's paying, because I think that really just it's who's paying. Because for me, I was reaching out to the individual and into their purse strings, directly. When I've worked for organisations, it's different, and it's just kind of blown my mind a bit. It's who's paying. For me, it's who do you want to be? What do you want to do now? What is it for now? What's the passion? Where do you want to spend your time? Who do you want to coach? What topics do you want to coach around for now? And that can change, and that's absolutely fine.
I think for me, this has been a really useful exercise, and again underscores the importance of coaches being coached, really, because this is a great, excellent kind of coaching kind of topic, coaching exercise that actually, as coaches on a regular basis, would be really useful to undertake.
What's your North Star? What's your purpose? Big questions, but actually coaching is that space where you can really explore that.